Hi, and welcome to part 2 of my Intro to Swift Dimecast. Today we're going to start out with Xcode version 6. This is the Gold Master version. We finally shipped Swift and we have a production version. We're going to take these new tools and we're going to make a master detail application. And we're going to explore table views, objects, and a little bit deeper dive into Swift syntax. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is create a new Xcode project. I'm going to say iOS application, single view application is what we picked last time. This time I'm going to choose master detail application. Click next. Let's call this one Dr. Swift. Organization, keep everything the same. This time make sure you pick Swift as your language. iPhone, next. I'll just save it right here in my Dimecast folder. Okay. First thing we'll notice is the storyboard looks a little different this time. First thing we have is a navigation controller, and the entry point arrow points here. It's going to load into the navigation controller first, which wraps this master table view, which then has a segue, that's the connection, this is the transition that we're going to allow to happen, to a detail view. You notice our master view has a table view in it, so it'll be that typical iOS scrollable table view. Right now, the prototype cell, the one that every time we ask for an instance, it's going to create, just has a title. We're going to select that. We're going to come over here. I'm going to choose subtitle. And we're just going to use this default cell for ours. The navigation controller allows us to go to detail and then back to master. It keeps track of those things on a stack so that we can push and pop view controllers on and have some semblance of a navigation. So the first thing I want to do is I actually want to create a new Swift object. We're going to call this one episode. What I'm going to do here is actually not create a class. I'm going to create a struct, and I'm going to just paste in the code here. So we're going to have a struct episode that's going to have 5 properties, all strings, episode title, writer name, doctor name, episode number, and synopsis. I'm making this a struct because it's not going to have any functionality. It's really just an encapsulation of properties. So I'm choosing that. The setup goes just like this. We're using our var keyword that we should be familiar with last time, and then the standard variable declaration of colon, and then data type. Now I'm going to make another class. This time it will be a class. We're going to call this one episode repository. And again, I'm going to paste in the code. So first things I've done here is I've declared a class, episode repository. Now I've declared one method. Remember that func keyword creates a method in Swift, and I'm calling it getEpisodeList that takes no parameters and returns an array of episode. That's why we have episode here with the square brackets around it. It says we're going to return an array of episodes. In this class in front of the func, that means that we are creating a class level method or a static method if you're more familiar with that from other languages. So right away, I'm going to declare our episodes variable that we'll eventually return. And then just one by one, I'm setting up each episode and then appending it into the episodes to be returned. So you can see I do that for 6 different episodes, and ultimately I return the episode when we finish. Okay. Now let's take a look at our master view controller. Alright, first thing you'll notice is that the master view controller inherits from UI TableView controller. That's different than last time where we inherited from UI view controller. If you hold down the command key and click UI TableView controller, we'll get to see the definition of it. And you'll see that UI TableView controller is nothing more than a class that inherits from UI view controller, UI TableView delegate, and then UI TableView data source are the ones that we care about, so that we can actually use a table view within this class and allow this class to be the data source and the delegate to handle the events that bubble up from the table view. So we're back in here. Now, we used the template to create this master detail. So there's some things in here that Apple's given us that we don't really need, and I'm going to erase those to clean this up to make it a little more readable and less confusing as I explain. So first thing, this override func awake from nib, it just calls the super, so it's unnecessary. They just have it in there so you know where to get it. Did receive memory warning has the same problem. We don't need it. It just calls the original functionality. Also, they've given us the ability to add and edit objects in the table view, and we don't need that either because we're not going to do it. So I'm going to come into this view did load. I'm going to get rid of our edit button and our add button that they've added. I don't need this insert object method. Coming down here, I also don't need can edit row. Don't need that. And this last one about changing the style while you're editing, we don't need that either. So that cleans this up considerably so that we can work. When you have a table view and your class is acting as the table view delegate, there are some methods that you do need to implement. One of those is number of sections in table view. So what that does is, as it's creating the table view, it checks to see how many sections or groupings of cells you're going to need. You could think about the settings application in iOS that has many separate groupings for each section of the settings. In our case, we only have one because we're just returning a list of episodes. It's just one master grouping. There's one that's number of rows in section. That one as well, it was defined for us already, but that's okay. We're going to use it just like this. What it does is it checks our objects array and just returns the count. So that tells you just exactly how many rows it's going to be expected to create. I'm going to change this objects here from an NS mutable array to an episode array. And then just to clear out the errors, I'm going to clear out where they used it, both here and here. So one thing I'm going to do in our view did load is I want to get these objects for us. So let's go objects equals, and this is where I can just call episode repository dot get episode list. So when the view loads, we'll get our list of episodes, we'll populate it. Now how does that actually show up on our cell? Well, that's done down here. Cell for row at index path. So as it gets to each index on the cell, so it's creating the cells, they're 0 indexed, they're going to go through the list. As it comes to each one, we're going to check that against the items. And so we're going to do a 1-for-1 on the cells to our object list. So first thing we've done is, in order to save memory, what iOS will do is, as a cell goes off the screen, it will try to reuse that cell to create the cell that's coming up from the bottom. If there is no cell going off the screen and these are the original set of cells, it'll just create a new one. So what it'll try to do is say table view DQ reusable cell, so is there one coming off, of type cell, which is how it was defined, for index path. If it can get one, it will get one. If not, it will make a new one. So now we're going to operate on the cell. We'll say cell dot detail text label dot text equals. Actually, first let's get our episode. Our episode equals objects. Let's pass in index path dot row. So that'll be our episode number, and then cell dot text label dot text will be our episode dot episode title. And that's all there is to it. Right now we should be able to see our original table view with a list of episodes. Let's see what we have. We're going to run this in the new iPhone 6 emulator. And here we have our episodes. Nothing will happen when we click on them right now. But we have created our episodes, created a repository with a static method in order to populate the episodes, and then we used the self-arrowed index path method of the TableView delegate to populate our master view. In the next episode, we'll work on populating the detail view when each episode is selected in master. Until then.